The perfect life I'd built from nothing started crumbling the moment Officer Seth Mayer pressed that folded piece of paper into my palm. I stood there on Highway 47 watching my wife Jessica fumble with her registration while blue and red lights painted her BMW in colors of betrayal. At 42, I thought I knew who I was, Wade Wu, self-made man, owner of 3 successful auto repair shops, husband to a woman I'd loved for 15 years. The autumn air carried the scent of dying leaves and diesel exhaust. But all I could smell was the metallic taste of fear coating my tongue. Officer Mayer was young, maybe early 30s, with the kind of earnest face that still believed in doing the right thing. As he ran Jessica's license, I watched his expression change from routine boredom to something that looked like pity. "It's sir," he called out, approaching me with hesitant steps. "I need you to listen to me carefully. Do not go home tonight. Get somewhere safe." The blood drained from my face like water through a broken pipe. "What? Why? What's wrong?" He glanced around nervously, then pressed the note deeper into my palm. The paper felt thin and fragile, like it might disintegrate if I squeezed too hard. "I can't explain now. It's—" He paused, swallowing hard. "It's horrifying. Legally, I can't do anything, but—" His voice dropped to a whisper that barely carried over the highway traffic. "That woman isn't who you think she is, and neither is the man waiting at your house." My world tilted on its axis. The asphalt beneath my feet suddenly felt unsteady, like I was standing on the deck of a ship in rough seas. "What man? Read the note. Tonight, don't confront anyone. Just be smart about this." Officer Mayer handed Jessica back her license with a professional smile, but I caught the look of disgust that flashed across his face like lightning in a dark sky. As the patrol car drove away, Jessica returned to our car, chattering nervously about the officer being strange and asking odd questions. I nodded absently, the note burning like acid in my pocket. My hands were shaking as I suggested we get dinner before heading to her sister Gail's place, buying myself time to think. While my mind raced through possibilities I didn't want to consider. At the restaurant, I excused myself to the bathroom and unfolded the note with trembling fingers. The fluorescent light above the mirror buzzed like an angry wasp as I read words that would shatter everything I thought I knew about my life. "Your wife has been seeing Patrick Mullins for 8 months. Tonight he's in your house going through your safe." She gave him the combination. "There's more, much more. She's been planning this for years. I'm sorry, I wish I could do more. A friend who remembers you helped his family when no one else would." I stared at the words until they blurred together, my vision swimming with something that might have been tears or rage. Patrick Mullins. The name hit me like a sledgehammer to the chest. Patrick had worked at my first shop 5 years ago, a charming man with quick hands and even quicker excuses for why cash kept coming up short. I'd fired him without pressing charges, believing everyone deserved a second chance. Apparently, Patrick had been planning his revenge ever since. But Jessica, my Jessica, we'd been married for 15 years. We'd built everything together, survived my mother's cancer, her father's bankruptcy, countless struggles that should have brought us closer. I folded the note with mechanical precision and walked back to the table, my face a careful mask that felt like plastic stretched too tight over my skull. Jessica was texting someone, her phone angled away from me, something I'd never noticed before but now seemed glaringly obvious. The soft glow from her screen illuminated her face, and for a moment she looked like a stranger wearing my wife's features. "Everything okay, honey?" she asked without looking up, her thumb still dancing across the screen. Perfect," I replied, and for the first time in our marriage I meant the opposite. The drive to Gail's house stretched like 20 minutes of torture. Jessica kept checking her phone, and I found myself cataloging every lie she might have told, every late night at work, every weekend trip to visit college friends I'd never met. The foundation of my life wasn't just cracking, it was revealing that there had never been a foundation at all. When we arrived at Gail's house, I claimed I had a work emergency and needed to head back. Jessica's relief was so palpable it was almost comical, like watching a bad actress overplay her role. She kissed me goodbye with the same lips that had probably been kissing Patrick Mullins, and I had to clench my fist to keep from grabbing her throat right there on her sister's doorstep. But I hadn't built a business empire from nothing by acting on impulse. I'd learned patience from my father's strategy from my grandfather and ruthlessness from the streets that had tried to keep me down. If Jessica and Patrick thought they could destroy everything I'd built, they were about to learn what a mistake that was. As I drove toward downtown instead of home, I began forming a plan that would make their betrayal look like a children's game. They thought they were playing me, but they had no idea they'd just started a war with someone who never lost. I checked into the Riverside Hotel using cash, a habit from my youth that legitimate success had never quite erased. From my room on the 5th floor, I had a clear view of my house 3 miles away, nestled in the hills like a beacon of betrayal. The city lights twinkled below me, each one representing lives that weren't built on lies, families that weren't plotting against each other in the darkness. I called my lawyer, Oliver Doyle, who owed me more favors than either man could count. Oliver had been a struggling public defender when my first shop was vandalized by local gang members. I'd personally hunted down every one of them, and the message I delivered had been clear enough that Oliver never had to worry about his family's safety again. Oliver, I need surveillance equipment, professional grade, and I need it delivered to my hotel room within 2 hours. Wait, it's almost midnight. 2 hours, Oliver. And I need complete documentation on Patrick Mullins' employment history, criminal record, financial statements, known associates, everything. The silence on the other end stretched long enough for me to hear Oliver's ethical concerns wrestling with his debt of gratitude. Gratitude 1. I'll make some calls. While waiting, I sat by the window and watched my house through binoculars I'd retrieved from my car. The night air was cold against the glass, but inside I felt colder. At 12:47 a.m., a figure emerged from the side door, my side door, the one only family was supposed to use. Even from this distance, I could make out Patrick's distinctive swagger, the way he moved like he owned whatever space he occupied. Patrick was carrying something, a bag that looked suspiciously like the emergency cash stash I kept in my study for situations exactly like this one. The irony would have been funny if it weren't so infuriating. My phone buzzed with a text from Jessica staying at Gale's tonight. She's having a hard time. Love you. I didn't respond. Love. The word felt poisonous in my mouth. Oliver arrived personally at 2:15 a.m., carrying a case that looked like it belonged to a private investigator. GPS trackers, audio surveillance, micro cameras, and a complete digital file on your friend Mullins. He paused, studying my face in the dim hotel lighting. Wade, whatever you're thinking of doing, I'm thinking of protecting what's mine. The legal system protects people like them. My voice was flat, emotionless. I protect people like me. Oliver left without another word, and I spent the next hour studying Patrick Mullins's life like a general studying enemy territory. The man was a textbook predator with a long history of seducing married women, draining their bank accounts, and disappearing before consequences could catch up. He'd done it in 3 different states, always staying just on the right side of criminal charges. But Patrick had made a crucial error this time. He'd chosen Wade Wu. I began with the surveillance equipment, planning entry points and camera angles with the precision of a military operation. But as I studied Patrick's pattern of behavior, a much more elegant plan began to form. Patrick wasn't just a thief, he was predictable. He followed the same playbook every time: seduce the wife, gain access to finances, create dependency, then extract everything possible before moving on. The pattern suggested Patrick would want to completely destroy my life, not just rob me. That meant this wasn't just about money. It was about power, humiliation, the complete conquest of another man's world. Which meant Patrick would get careless because he'd done this before and never faced real consequences. I smiled for the first time since reading the officer's note. Patrick Mullins had no idea what real consequences looked like. By dawn, I had a preliminary plan. I would give Patrick exactly what he wanted: complete access to Wade's world. But like a spider offering its web to a fly, that access would become a trap. My phone rang at 8:30 a.m. Jessica. "Hi, honey. How did your emergency go?" "Fine. Just a problem with the Morrison contract." The lie came easily, like I'd been practicing deception my whole life instead of living it. "How's Gail?" "I'm better. Listen, I might need to stay another night or two. She's really struggling." "Of course. Take care of your sister." After hanging up, I looked up Gail McIntosh's phone number. Time to test just how elaborate Jessica's deception was. "Gail, it's Wade. I just wanted to check on you and make sure you're okay." The confusion in Gail's voice was answer enough. She was fine, hadn't seen Jessica in 2 weeks, and had no idea what I was talking about. I thanked her and hung up, adding another lie to my mental ledger. Jessica hadn't just betrayed me. She'd crafted an entire alternate reality to do it. The sister visits, the work emergencies, the girls' weekends, how much of my wife's life had been fiction? But I'd grown up on the streets before building my empire. And one thing the streets had taught me was that people who lived in fantasies died when reality came calling. It was time to introduce Patrick and Jessica to reality. I returned home that afternoon, walking through my house like a crime scene investigator. Everything looked normal, but now I knew what to look for. The safe in my study had been opened and closed, but whoever had done it was skilled. No scratches on the lock, no disturbed dust patterns. Professional. I checked the hidden camera I'd installed in my study years ago after a break-in scare. The timestamp showed Patrick Mullins in my private space at 11:23 p.m. photographing documents, copying files, and pocketing what looked like my emergency cash reserve and backup credit cards. But the most chilling moment came when Patrick held up my wedding photo, smiled at it like he was sharing a private joke, then carefully placed it face down on the desk. I watched the footage 3 times, memorizing every detail of his movements, his expressions, his casual violation of everything I held sacred. Then I made a decision that would have consequences far beyond what Jessica and Patrick could imagine. I called my old friend Clarence Combs. Clarence ran a security consulting firm, which was a polite way of saying he handled problems that couldn't be solved through legal channels. We'd grown up in the same neighborhood, and when Clarence's daughter had needed surgery that insurance wouldn't cover, I'd paid for it without being asked. That kind of debt ran deeper than money. "Hey, Clarence, I need a full team. Surveillance, counter-surveillance, and asset protection. And I need people who understand that some problems require permanent solutions." "How permanent? Are we talking, Wade?" "I'll let you know." Within hours, my house was wired with professional surveillance equipment that made Oliver's setup look like children's toys. But more importantly, Clarence had provided something even more valuable: information. "Your boy Patrick has debts." Clarence reported over dinner at a truck stop outside town. Serious debts to serious people. He owes money to some Russian import-export specialists who don't accept payment plans. "How much does he owe?" "$250,000 plus interest that compounds daily." I leaned back in my booth, pieces clicking into place. So Jessica isn't just his target, she's his lifeline. It gets better. "I ran some checks on your wife's financial activity. She's been moving money for months. Small amounts, different accounts, always just under the reporting thresholds. Someone taught her how to wash money without triggering flags." The waitress refilled my coffee, and I waited until she was gone before speaking. "How much?" "Best estimate, she's moved about $400,000 over the past year. Money that came from your business accounts, your personal savings, even small amounts from your retirement fund." My vision went red around the edges. $400,000. Money that represented years of 18-hour days, deals made in back alleys and boardrooms, risks that had paid off through sweat and blood and sheer force of will. "There's more," Clarence continued. "The money didn't just disappear, it's been invested. Real estate purchases in Patrick's name, some offshore accounts, a few business ventures that don't exist on paper. They've been building a future together, Wade. A future financed by your past. I set down my coffee cup with deliberate care. I want to know everything. Every account, every purchase, every lie they've told each other. I want to know what they eat for breakfast and what they dream about at night. Then I met my old friend's eyes, and Clarence saw something there that made him glad they were on the same side. And then I'm going to give them exactly what they deserve. That night I lay in my bed, the bed I'd shared with Jessica for 15 years, and stared at the ceiling. Tomorrow I would begin implementing a plan that would make Patrick and Jessica's betrayal look like a children's game. They thought they were stealing my life, but they were about to discover that some men couldn't be stolen from. They could only be awakened. I woke before dawn and went through my morning routine like a man preparing for war. Coffee, shower, workout in my home gym, then a careful review of the surveillance footage from the night before. Jessica had returned home at 2:47 a.m., moving through the house like a ghost, checking her phone constantly, even going so far as to smell my pillow to see if I'd been there. When she finally woke at 9:30, I was already gone, ostensibly to work, but actually to begin phase 1 of my plan. My first stop was the office of Maria Gamble, a private investigator who specialized in financial crimes. Maria had helped me investigate a potential partner years ago and had uncovered embezzlement that saved me from a disastrous merger. She was thorough, discreet, and had no qualms about operating in legal gray areas. I need complete financial profiles on these two. I said, sliding photos of Jessica and Patrick across her desk. Every account, every transaction, every asset, legal and illegal. Maria studied the photos with professional interest. Your wife? My soon-to-be ex-wife. This isn't going to be cheap, Wade. Deep financial investigations take time and resources. I placed a briefcase on her desk and opened it. $50,000 in cash filled the interior like green promise. How much time do you need? 72 hours. You have 48. Next, I visited my accountant, Howard Stevens, who managed the books for all 3 of my auto shops. Howard was meticulous to the point of obsession, which made him perfect for what I needed. Howard, I need you to restructure everything. Transfer ownership of the shops to a new corporation, move all liquid assets to accounts Jessica can't access, and create a paper trail that shows the businesses are struggling financially. Howard's face went pale. Wade, if you're going through a divorce, this could be considered asset hiding. The courts won't be involved. I said, my tone flat as hammered steel. I'm not getting divorced, Howard. I'm getting justice. The difference in my voice made Howard stop asking questions. By afternoon, I'd visited each of my shops ostensibly for routine inspections, but actually to plant seeds of a much larger plan. I spoke privately with key employees, asking carefully crafted questions about loyalty, about what they would do if the business faced serious threats, about whether they could keep sensitive information confidential. I'd learned long ago that loyalty couldn't be bought, but it could be cultivated. Every person I spoke with remembered specific kindnesses, the Christmas bonuses when their kids needed surgery, the promotions when other shops wouldn't hire them, the second chances when their own mistakes could have cost them everything. By evening, I'd assembled a network of allies who would do almost anything to protect the man who had protected them. The call came at 6:47 a.m., 3 days after I'd set my plan in motion. Maria Gamble's voice was tight with excitement and disgust in equal measure. Wade, you need to see this. Can you be at my office in an hour? I arrived to find Maria's desk covered with financial documents, photographs, and bank records that painted a picture of systematic betrayal that went far deeper than I'd imagined. Your wife is smart? Maria began spreading out bank statements like tarot cards, revealing an ugly future. But Patrick Mullins is smarter and greedier. Jessica has been moving your money for 14 months, not 8. But here's the interesting part. Patrick's been moving her money too. Every account she set up, every investment she made with your stolen funds, he's been skimming from. She thinks they have 400,000 together. He's actually got closer to 600, and 300 of it is hidden from her. I studied the documents, feeling a cold satisfaction settle in my chest. He's planning to disappear. More than that. Look at this. Maria produced a lease agreement. Patrick signed a 2-year lease on a house in Jessica's name using her social security number and forged signature. If things go south, she's liable for 24 months of rent on a place she's never seen. Where? Costa Rica, non-extradition jurisdiction for financial crimes under 50,000 per incident. I leaned back in my chair, pieces of the puzzle clicking together. Patrick wasn't just stealing from me, he was setting Jessica up to take the fall for everything. When the time came to disappear, Patrick would leave Jessica holding the bag for fraud charges while he lived comfortably on money stolen from both of us. There's more, Maria continued. Patrick's been recording everything: phone calls, hotel meetings, even intimate encounters. He's got enough evidence to destroy Jessica's reputation and implicate her in every aspect of the theft while painting himself as a manipulated victim. I felt something that might have been admiration for Patrick's thoroughness if it weren't directed at destroying my life. The man was a professional predator who had perfected the art of leaving his accomplices to face consequences alone. But Patrick had made one crucial error. He'd assumed Wade Wu was just another mark. I need copies of everything, Stu, I said. And I need you to do one more thing. That afternoon, I called Jessica and asked her to meet me for lunch at our favorite restaurant, the same place where we'd had our first date 16 years ago. Jessica arrived looking beautiful and nervous, checking her phone constantly, a habit I now recognized as Patrick maintenance. I'd been thinking about our future. I began echoing the text I'd sent nights ago. About what we want out of life. What do you mean? Her voice was carefully controlled, but I could see the tension in the way she held her shoulders. I pulled out a folder and set it on the table between us. I think it's time for us to make some changes, big changes. Jessica's face went pale as she opened the folder and saw the first document, a property listing for a house in Costa Rica, complete with photographs and a purchase agreement. Wade, what is this? Our new life. I've been looking into retiring early, maybe moving somewhere we can really be ourselves. I watched Jessica's face carefully. I found this place through a business associate, Patrick Mullins. You remember Patrick, don't you? Jessica's hand trembled as she turned the pages. I don't understand. Patrick's been helping me research expatriate living. Taxes, property laws, the best ways to transfer assets internationally without triggering government oversight. My voice was casual, conversational. He's got quite a bit of experience with international finance. The color drained from Jessica's face as she realized I was describing exactly what she and Patrick had been doing with my money. But there was more. I was describing it like it was my idea, like I was planning to do it legally and openly. Wade, I don't think... She was cut off by her phone buzzing with a text. She glanced at it and I saw her face go from pale to gray. Whatever Patrick had just sent her, it wasn't good news. I need to go, Jessica said suddenly, closing the folder. I'm not feeling well. Of course, take the folder with you. Look it over and we can discuss it tonight. I watched Jessica hurry out of the restaurant, clutching the folder like it was evidence of her own execution. Which in a way it was. Because Jessica now had to warn Patrick that I somehow knew about their plan, risking exposure of their entire relationship, or stay quiet and hope my interest in Costa Rica was coincidental. Either choice would lead to the same result. Patrick would realize the situation had become too dangerous and would begin implementing his exit strategy, which meant he would begin cutting Jessica loose. My phone buzzed with a text from Clarence. Package delivered. Phase 3 ready to begin. The meeting was set for 7:00 p.m. at Morton's Steakhouse, neutral territory where both Jessica and Patrick would feel comfortable. I arrived early and selected a corner booth with clear sight lines to all entrances. Old habits from a youth spent in environments where sitting with your back to a door could be fatal. Jessica arrived first, her nervousness obvious in the way she kept smoothing her hair and checking her phone. She dressed carefully, professional but attractive, the kind of outfit that suggested serious business while still appealing to the men in her life. Patrick entered exactly at 7, and I had to admire his composure. The man showed no sign of recognition beyond a polite smile, no indication that he'd been systematically looting my life for over a year. He was good at his craft. "It Wade, good to see you again," Patrick said, extending his hand with perfect confidence. "Jessica's told me you're interested in some offshore opportunities." Very interested," I replied, studying Patrick's face like I was memorizing it for a police sketch. "I understand you have considerable experience with international asset management." "Some," Patrick said modestly. "I've helped a few clients diversify their holdings in favorable jurisdictions." I nodded and pulled out a briefcase, setting it on the table with deliberate precision. "I've brought some documentation you might find interesting." Patrick's eyes flicked to the briefcase, then to Jessica, who had gone very still. I opened the briefcase and removed 3 folders, setting them on the table like a dealer laying out cards in a high-stakes game. The first folder contains financial records from my businesses over the past 18 months. I began. "Revenue, expenses, asset transfers, the usual." Patrick relaxed slightly. This was familiar territory. The second folder contains surveillance photographs taken over the past month. Patrick's face didn't change, but I caught the slight tightening around his eyes. Jessica made a small sound that might have been a whimper. The third folder contains transcripts of conversations between various parties regarding my finances, my marriage, and certain planned relocations to non-extradition territories. The silence that followed was profound. Patrick's hand had stopped moving toward his water glass. Jessica was staring at the folders like they were venomous snakes. And now I continued conversationally. "We can discuss this like civilized people, or we can involve other parties. Your choice." Patrick recovered first, as I'd expected. Predators were always quick to assess new threats. "Wait, I think there might be some misunderstanding." "No misunderstanding?" I opened the first folder and removed a bank statement. "Jessica, would you like to explain to Patrick why your signature appears on this withdrawal authorization for $50,000 from my business account?" Jessica's face crumpled. "Wade, please." "Or Patrick, perhaps you'd like to explain why you're listed as the beneficiary on a life insurance policy Jessica took out on me 6 months ago." That got Patrick's attention. I'd saved this revelation for maximum impact, and the look of genuine surprise on Patrick's face told me everything I needed to know. Patrick hadn't known about the insurance policy, which meant Jessica had been planning contingencies that didn't include her lover. Life insurance. Patrick's voice was carefully controlled, but I caught the edge of betrayal underneath. $2 million. I said, with Jessica as the primary beneficiary and Patrick Mullins as secondary. "Interesting arrangement, don't you think?" Patrick turned to Jessica with an expression that would have been terrifying if I hadn't been enjoying it so much. "You didn't mention any insurance policies." "I wanted to protect us." Protect us or protect yourself." I leaned back and watched as the alliance between my wife and her lover began to fracture in real time. This was why I'd included the insurance information, even though discovering it had been the most chilling moment of my investigation. Jessica hadn't just been stealing from me, she'd been considering whether my death might be more profitable than my betrayal. "Hey, there's more," I said, opening the second folder. "Patrick, are you familiar with the name Arturo Reyes?" Patrick's face went white. "How do you—" "Arturo is a business associate of mine. Has been for years." Imagine my surprise when he mentioned that someone had approached him about arranging an accident for a prominent local businessman. This was a lie, but I delivered it with such casual confidence that both Jessica and Patrick believed it completely. The art of psychological warfare was making your enemies destroy themselves with their own guilt and paranoia. "Wade," Jessica whispered, "we never planned to kill me or never planned to get caught." Patrick stood abruptly. "I think this conversation is over. Sit down," I said quietly, and something in my voice made Patrick freeze. "You haven't heard the best part yet." I opened the third folder and removed a photograph of Patrick entering a hotel room, followed by another photograph of him leaving 3 hours later with a briefcase. That's the Riverside Hotel Room 237 last Tuesday night. The briefcase contains approximately $150,000 in cash that Jessica doesn't know about. Jessica turned to Patrick with an expression of dawning horror. What is he talking about? Or we could discuss the house in Costa Rica that Patrick leased in your name, Jessica. The one you'll be liable for even after he disappears with the money you've both been stealing from me. The trap was now fully sprung. Patrick realized he'd been outmaneuvered. Jessica realized she'd been betrayed by both men in her life, and I sat back to watch them tear each other apart. You bastard, Jessica hissed at Patrick. You were planning to leave me holding everything. And you're planning to murder your husband, Patrick shot back. Don't pretend you're innocent in this, I smiled. Actually, you're both going to have bigger problems than each other very soon. I removed my phone and showed them the screen, which displayed a text message package secured. Awaiting instructions. Clarence Combs has been monitoring this conversation. He's also been monitoring both of your residences, your financial accounts, and your communications. In approximately 10 minutes, federal agents are going to raid Patrick's apartment and Jessica's office. This was another lie, but I was counting on panic to prevent logical thinking. What they'll find is evidence of systematic fraud, identity theft, and conspiracy to commit murder. They'll also find evidence that Jessica has been embezzling from her own company to fund this operation. Jessica's face went ashen. She worked as an accountant for a major firm, and any financial irregularities in her work would end her career even if they didn't result in criminal charges. Here's what's going to happen, I continued. Patrick, you're going to transfer every penny you've stolen from me back to my accounts. All of it, including the money you've hidden from Jessica. And if I refuse, Patrick's bravado was cracking like old paint. My smile was cold as winter steel. Then you'll find out what happens when you steal from someone who grew up in neighborhoods where thieves didn't live long enough to repeat their mistakes. You're threatening me. I'm promising you. I turned to Jessica. And you, my dear wife, are going to sign divorce papers that leave you with exactly what you brought to this marriage 15 years ago. Nothing. Wade, please. You had 15 years to be honest with me. You had 1,000 opportunities to be the woman I thought I married. Instead, you chose to be a thief and I let the words hang in the air like a death sentence. I stood and placed $500 on the table. This covers dinner. You have 24 hours to comply with my terms. After that, other people will handle the situation, and they won't be as generous as I'm being. I walked away, leaving Jessica and Patrick to face the wreckage of their carefully planned betrayal. Behind me, I could hear them starting to argue, accusations flying like bullets. The sound of two predators turning on each other when their prey proved too dangerous to handle. The real revenge was just beginning. 3 months later, I sat in my office at what was now my 4th auto shop, watching the morning crew prepare for another day. The business had expanded faster than I'd projected, fueled by insurance money from Patrick's theft and the liquidated assets from my divorce settlement. Patrick Mullins had disappeared completely. Some said he'd fled to Mexico. Others whispered about debts to Russian businessmen who didn't accept excuses. I didn't ask questions, and Clarence didn't offer details. Some problems solved themselves when you gave them the right encouragement. Jessica had signed the divorce papers without contest, taking only what she'd brought to our marriage, which was nothing. She'd relocated to Phoenix, working as a bookkeeper for a small firm, living in fear of consequences that might never come but would always be possible. My phone rang, interrupting my thoughts. The caller ID showed a number I didn't recognize. Wade Wu. Mr. Wu, this is Detective Angela Martinez. I'm investigating the disappearance of Patrick Mullins. I was hoping you might have a few minutes to answer some questions. I felt the familiar calm settle over me, the same feeling I'd had as a young man when violence was the only language that mattered. Of course, Detective. What would be convenient? Actually, I'm in the area now. Could I stop by your shop? I'll be here. Detective Martinez arrived 20 minutes later, a middle-aged woman with sharp eyes and the patient demeanor of someone very good at her job. I met her in my office offering coffee and projecting the helpful attitude of a successful businessman with nothing to hide. "I understand Patrick Mullins used to work for you," she began. "Yes, about 5 years ago I had to let him go for theft." "Hey, did you press charges?" "No, it was a relatively small amount and I believe in second chances." I paused. I should have pressed charges. The interview continued for 20 minutes. I told her about the business meeting, about discovering the affair, about my divorce. I showed appropriate anger about the betrayal, appropriate concern about Patrick's disappearance, and appropriate ignorance about what might have happened to him. "Do you have any idea what might have happened to Patrick Mullins?" she asked finally. I was quiet for a moment, as if considering the question seriously. Detective Patrick Mullins was a professional con artist who made a career out of stealing from people and disappearing before facing consequences. Based on what I learned about him during my investigation of the theft, he had enemies in several states and owed money to some very unforgiving people. "What kind of people do no mold?" "The kind who don't call the police when someone fails to pay their debts." Detective Martinez nodded slowly and closed her notebook. "Thank you for your time, Mr. Wu. If you think of anything else that might be helpful, please call me." After she left, I sat in my office and looked out at my shops, my employees, my empire built from nothing, and defended against those who would destroy it. At 43 years old, I was financially secure, completely free of people who might betray me, and surrounded by those who understood the value of loyalty. My phone buzzed with a text from Officer Seth Mayer. "Mr. Wu, I don't know how to thank you for what you've done for my daughter. The treatment is working. I'll never forget this kindness." I smiled and deleted the message. Some debts were worth paying, some favors worth returning. But from now on, Wade Wu would choose very carefully who earned his trust and loyalty. Because in a world full of predators, the only way to survive was to be the apex predator. And I was very good at surviving. Thanks for listening. Don't forget to subscribe and feel free to share your story in the comments. Your voice matters.